This is what a day in the life looks like for me. I drove 100 miles north this morning to meet up with some subscribers at a place called Two Smoke Cigar Shop. They had emailed me and asked me if I wanted to come up to shoot the breeze, to meet some people. And the guys that I met were not your average preachers, put it that way. Heavily tattooed, very well versed in the Bible, and every single solitary one was open carrying. We talked about chemtrails, we talked about NASA, we talked about the Torah, and we talked about Israel. So sit back, settle in. This is going to take a while, but you'll definitely learn something, because I sure did. Or don't. It's your call. Thumbs down now, and have at it.
All right, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. Again, I am here with Scott. I am here with Brian. We are still at Twin Smoke Shop in Hooksett, New Hampshire. We've talked about the Dead Sea Scrolls. We've talked about the Rothschilds. We've talked about the New World Order. We've talked about Hebrews and chemtrails. Brian was just telling me how hard it was to convince Scott of the chemtrails, and then apparently you saw the light. And I guess it was Dane Wigington's video.
Right, correct. Yeah, it was a while back. Yeah, Brian and I used to argue.
Like, seriously, like if you saw us, you would think we weren't even friends.
Really?
Yeah, I was quite the asshole.
and we've been friends for a long time.
But the thing is
I've been an asshole a long time.
we live in a culture where they incorporate all these subtle little hints. You'll be watching Seinfeld and somebody will say something about JFK and everyone else ridicules them, and that translates. Nobody wants to be the conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. And it turns out in I think the late 2014-ish, the CIA declassified a document where they actually weaponized the phrase conspiracy theorist.
Yep.
They came up with the weaponization so that anybody that presents any information to you that doesn't go along with mainstream, the government line, so forth or so on, it automatically pops up, you're a conspiracy theorist. Believe it or not, there is no way in the world ever at all that a dude on dialysis in a cave on the other side of the world, flat disc, plane, whatever you want to call it, with a cell phone could coordinate a bunch of airplanes hitting a bunch of buildings, causing them all to fall down faster than free fall, as though there were no buildings there at all, ever, and actually making a couple other buildings fall down too. But I digress.
It's magic.
It's magic. It's magic. And the more I looked for answers, the more I discovered that we are indeed living in the end of the Bible.
Absolutely.
How crazy is that? And now everybody, every generation before us thought the same.
That's right.
Except, how is it us? What if you had to say one thing to prove without a shadow of a doubt, for the most part, that we are the generation, what would it be, in your opinion?
That's a very good question. The first thing that pops to my mind, honestly, calling good evil and evil good. That's the first thing that pops to mind, because never before, you go back to when we were growing up, what they showed on TV, go back to what our parents grew up watching, never before have we put out there as a societal norm to call things that used to be bad now good.
Front page of National Geographic.
Never before.
National Geographic. Here's a bunch of pygmy folk from the other side of the world that live in the jungle, to suddenly there's a transgender boy or girl on the cover of National Geographic. What in the world does that even have to do with National Geographic? And then why are they pushing it? And that was the cover of 2016.
Think about it. Isn't that sum it up in a nutshell? Calling good evil and evil good.
It does.
I remember people talking about, the tribulation and the Iron Curtain was still up. And then in our generation, we saw the wall come down, right?
Yep.
And then you hear, you go through the Cold War and the whole. You remember when we were kids that movie that came out the day after?
Yeah.
like scared everybody to death because we're going to go to nuclear war with Russia, you know? You didn't have transgender bathrooms and homosexual rights and gay marriage and pedophilia and, you know, people wanting to marry robots and people wanted to marry their dogs, and you never saw any of that.
Now that might sound like it's overboard or pushing it, but here's the deal. All the top scientific, technological, futurism magazines are showcasing men, true men of science, that are talking about, one day I'm going to marry and have a child with this robot that I've built. And not only is that insane, but the magazine is pushing it forward and it's no big deal. They tell us all the time that the world is overpopulated by a lot. There isn't enough food, there isn't enough water, there isn't enough air, everything is horribly wrong, but they don't stop making more and more exact, perfect replicas of the human body. In my estimation, that is so that when they do tear the veil that God put between spirituality and physicality, the spirituality will be able to inhabit these robots.
Exactly what they are.
How crazy is it that we're saying this and we're probably right?
It's happening in our time. We're seeing it. We're seeing it. All right, for instance, look at the Middle East. Look at Damascus. It was prophesied that in the last days Damascus would be destroyed. Have you seen the pictures?
Yes.
Has anybody seen the pictures of what Damascus looks like? It looks like a wasteland.
And the funny thing is Damascus is being ruined simply because they don't have a central bank.
Oh,
Imagine that.
Like every other country we went into and said the dictator has to come down.
That's right.
What was it, Gaddafi that was going to go to the gold standard? I'm not saying the guy was a good guy, but the minute he said, "Hey, we're going to go to the gold standard," what happened? Let's go. Hey, we're going to send some freedom that way.
That's right. Freedom at the barrel of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 50 years old. We've been at war since the day I was born,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't stopped. We've been in a perpetual state of war, one way or the other. And it turns out that if you go and look into Gaddafi's real history, he actually gave his people education, food.
A lot of his people loved him.
It's amazing.
It's not like Saddam. A lot of Saddam's people, they hated him.
Saddam was put there by
the
Rumsfeld.
U.S. government.
Right.
And then we lied
Yep.
and said he was doing ABC so that we could go in and wipe him out. We gave him permission.
We gave him permission to go in there and sat there and waited.
And then what he did, we said,
CNN.
yeah, no,
Boom.
bad, yeah, exactly.
So
I mean, this is all how we can know. You know, good is being called evil. Evil is being called good. The righteousness that the Bible talks about is being called evil. You know, I don't understand. Okay, I said this once to somebody. I said, you know, people hate God, anything to do with Him. They hate the Bible, anything to do with it. And I always say, the Bible teaches you and I to have love, joy, peace, patience, meekness, humility, and faith. Do you see anything wrong with those attributes?
Right.
Do you?
Well, if you
And
had
yet the opposite is hatred, envy, covetousness, pride, arrogance. I mean, have you ever met somebody who's arrogant?
oh yeah, every day.
And have you ever met somebody who's humble?
It's a rare thing.
But what is the difference? And yet these good attributes everybody hates and doesn't want anything to do with it. That should tell us something.
It's not only that they hate it, they ridicule it.
They ridicule it.
It's amazing how ridiculing people has become the norm. I don't understand what you're saying, so you're an idiot. I don't understand you, so you're an idiot.
Yeah, and I don't agree with you, so you're an idiot.
That's right.
Just because I don't
That's
agree
right.
with you. And, you know, so good, evil, evil, good, and then one more scripture. One more.
Have
'Cause
at
I
it.
have to.
Have at it, brother.
This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemous, disobedient to parents, incontinent, fierce, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. Is anything in that description I just gave you, forget about the world, does any of it describe our society right now?
No. No.
You know, proud, boastful, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God.
Everyone is so dead set arrogant about what they know because they've seen it on television. Television was the biggest trick that was ever
Oh,
played.
wait, Richie, I read it on Wikipedia.
Right. And then when you show them the actual documentation, the so-called white papers, oh, well then it's just amazing times.
Well, I think I said it to you one time. I said, I'm going to say a word. And the minute I say this word, right, I'm going to cast a spell on you and your brain is going to shut off. Okay, you ready for the word? You guys ready? Conspiracy. Your brain just shut off.
That's it.
You've been programmed. The minute you hear that word.
Well, you know what the word conspiracy means, right? Conspiracy theory. If you say conspiracy theory, you're deemed a fool. You're a heretic. You know, you got a tinfoil hat.
Right.
Conspiracy is actually a legal term because you can be convicted of a criminal conspiracy because it's two more people, right, conspiring to commit a crime.
Right.
You don't even have to commit the crime. You say, hey, let's go rob the bank down the road.
There it is.
And then we take a step in furtherance of that. That's a conspiracy to commit the felony robbery, right?
Mhm.
So when you talk about the government doing something, conspiracy means people in the government have conspired to do this. Chemtrails or whatever it is, they've conspired to do something that's illegal, right? And if you out that, you're a conspiracy theorist, and as you said earlier, they've demonized that term. If you say that the government's conspire all conspiracy theorists, and your brain shuts off.
Yeah.
You don't hear them anymore.
And the worst,
It's
worst
like,
part
it's like a
about
lot
it-
of our language
Yeah.
today, it's all twisted. They give new meanings.
good,
Good is
evil,
it?
evil,
Evil.
good.
And that's why it's so complicated to put your finger on it to get anybody of an alternate mindset to understand what you're saying, because you could go on for days and days talking about how society has been transformed.
Yeah.
And because it's so long and convoluted and complicated that no one wants to sit there and listen long enough. But look at the generations. Just for example, in the 40s and 50s, you could take a rifle to school as a kid and learn how to shoot properly, learn the proper handling techniques for firearms so you don't shoot yourself or somebody else back, and have respect for a firearm.
Mhm.
And now, if you get anywhere near close to a school, you go to jail.
Absolutely.
And if somebody in our society today sees somebody with an open carry, they think there's something wrong with you, when it used to be normal.
Or you're one of them. You're a sovereign citizen, or you're a.
People had respect for firearms. Now, how many people do you know? How many people have you met where just the mere sight of an inanimate object, such as a firearm, throws them into a panic?
Trigger.
They're
Trigger
triggered.
warning.
They're triggered. So all of this that we're talking about is slow process of indoctrination. And to tell somebody today who's been indoctrinated, to explain all this to them, they don't listen. I don't know how many.
And they don't
times
want
I try to
to.
have
Well
conversations.
said.
My nieces, I've got my older brother has two nephews, or I have two nephews and two nieces. The nephews are conservative-minded people, and the girls are liberals, and you can't talk to them. And they're well-educated, very
That's-
bright individuals, but you
that's-
can't talk to them.
That's it.
They
right
won't hear
there.
you.
The education system was completely. Saul Alinsky went into that a long time ago.
Exactly.
Hillary was a student of Saul Alinsky. She wrote her whatever it was
Her
called.
thesis.
Yes. That's how they did it.
That's the point.
more educated somebody is now,
Have you ever
you're
asked?
never gonna get to them.
Have you ever asked anybody?
And none of them believe in God.
Have you ever
No, and
asked?
that's why. That's why you can't talk to them, because they don't believe in God. And what is it you've always said? If you don't believe in God, you'll fall for anything.
That's right. It makes
You don't have
perfect
faith.
sense.
Have you
And
ever
they do,
asked
they fall.
somebody though, legitimately say, what were schools invented for? Or why did we initiate schools? Have you ever asked anybody that?
I've looked into it. I've covered that pretty extensively.
The whole reason we have schools or schools where public schools were created was to teach the Bible.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
Go back. The whole reason why it was initiated was to teach the Bible. Okay? And so you can see where it's gone. It's become nothing but indoctrination centers. Period. And end of story, indoctrination center. You know what? There are people going to school today. They come from conservative families, okay? God-fearing conservative families. They go off to college and they come back atheists.